Welcome to this edition of the Everlast Power video series. Today we'll be continuing our 5x10 project trailer build with part 3. In today's edition we'll be attaching the hitch to the trailer frame, and maybe we'll have some time to get started on the next phase of the build. I've selected 2x3x11 gauge tubing for the hitch. A critical mistake that many people make is making their trailer hitch a little too short. As a general rule, the longer the hitch, the better the trailer is going to pull. A short hitch can make a trailer overly sensitive to how it's loaded and can cause it to sway going down the road. It makes the trailer more difficult to back as well. I'm making this hitch a little over 4 foot from the trailer to the end of the coupler. All total, the tubing will be cut to 6 foot. This allows the tubing to intersect the first and second cross members. This helps reinforce the trailer and ensures the trailer hitch will be squarely mounted. The tubing we're using has a little surface rust, but the metal distributor gave us a price break on it, so it needs to be ground down to bare metal before we weld the hitch onto the tubing. For this trailer project build, I'll be using a 2-inch ball coupler. This coupler has a rating of 3,500 pounds, which is more than enough for our trailer. You could use 1 7/8 inches, but 2 inch is more common. Now we've come to a critical part. We must decide whether we're going to bolt or weld this coupler on. For our purposes, we're going to weld this coupler on, but if you're not sure how to weld a coupler or you're uncomfortable with welding it, don't. Just find someone who can weld it for you or go ahead and bolt it on. It'll work just fine bolted on. Whenever you're ready to weld the coupler on, make sure it's seated all the way on the tubing and clamp it so that it won't be moving during welding. You don't want to have a hitch that has slid forward or pulled off the seat while welding. Trust me, you don't. At this point, I'm ready to weld this coupler on. I'm going to give you a better view of what we're actually doing, especially during the plug welding of the round mounting holes on the coupler. When you're making a plug weld, start with the center of the hole and slowly spiral your weld outward, carrying with it a large puddle as possible. This will fill the hole and fuse the metal together. When you finish off, taper back toward the middle and create a dome on top. If it's concave or flush, you've underfilled this plug weld. We're about to put things in fast forward here. We're just going to speed up the film so that you can see what we're doing, but we don't have to see every little tiny detail. Now I'm ready to weld down the edge of the coupler, and after that I'm going to weld the bottom to complete the welding. To give the trailer tongue a resting point and keep it out of the dirt, I'm adding a small piece of angle iron. This will also be a good point to put the safety chains. Here I've measured from side to side and marked the center of the frame and the tubing. I then marked the outside of where the tubing should sit so the alignment would be easy when the time came to weld it. Now we've got it clamped and ready to weld. To make sure that I've got everything right, I'm measuring on the diagonal from the same outside points on the trailer and the tongue. If everything's right, then the measurement will be the same. If the hitch is not welded in straight, it can cause the trailer to track sideways and cause premature tire wear. However, as long as you're within about 1/8 of an inch or so, it'll work. I've ground back the rust where I'm going to weld it, and at this point I'm just going to tack it in. After I'll tack it, I'll check and make sure the tongue is still centered and square. At this point, I'm adding angle iron bracing to create an A-frame hitch. I'm using 1.5" by 1.5" 14 gauge angle that is cut to 6 foot long. Now 2x2 by 1/8 or even heavier angle could be used here. The center tongue on the hitch is heavy enough to support anything the trailer can take, so all this does is add a little bracing and helps improve the stiffness of the trailer. We want to intersect the trailer front cross member about 1/4 of the length across, and the front attachment point on the tongue is located about 18 inches behind the tip of the coupler. Locating these cross member supports at too steep of an angle can create issues when making a sharp turn or backing up. Now, you'll usually hit the bumper if you're turning too sharp. And that's another reason a long tongue is a good idea, as the 4-foot stick out allows a tight turning radius without hitting the bumper on the trailer. Now you want to be sure to get everything clamped securely before you tack weld the angle supports to the trailer. If everything is right, the two pieces of angle should hit the same point on the tongue and overlap. Now the overlap can be cut off with a plasma cutter or a cut-off wheel, or if you're using the thin angle like I am, just weld it together. At this point, I've got everything tacked up on the frame that I want, so it's okay if I go ahead and start welding the hitch on all the way. I weld the hitch on first because it ties all the parts together in the front of the trailer, and it's heavier material, so it won't draw as bad or quickly. Well, in this edition, I've covered how to weld your coupler and tongue on so that it's square and centered, and I've also shown you how to add the angle iron bracing to give the trailer a little extra rigidity and support. In our next edition, we'll cover an important aspect of trailer building, how to install the axle. So join us in part 4 when we cover this topic.